الحمد لله نستعين ونستغفر ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا من يهده له فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أما بعد اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك لنا فيمن أتيت وقنا من شر ما قضيت فإنك تقضي ولا يقضى عليك إنه لا يذل من وليت ولا يعز من هديت تبارك ربنا وتعاليت اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد شكرا لله سبحانه وتعالى من هذا اليوم ويوم أخرى الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله نستعين ونستغفره ونؤمن بك ونتوكل عليك ونثني عليك الخير ونشكرك ولا نكفرك ونقلب ونأثرك من يفشرك اللهم إياك نعبد ولك نصلي ونسجد لك نستغفر ونجيب رحمتك نخشى أتبعك نتبع بينكم ملك كافية. Thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala azza wa jalla for another day, and thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala azza wa jalla for this opportunity again. It is very newsworthy that we understand world politics and that we understand that, with the United States of America, that other countries, the EU, the European Union, that other countries want to also expand, and a lot of times that is diametrically opposed to our premise of what we want to do as far as being the most powerful country in the world. When you look at the situation in Ukraine and Russia, who was one time known as USSR, you find that they're really just trying to do the same thing. They're trying to expand their territory and become a superpower and a larger thing. Even with the Islamic countries, Islamic organizations, the Taliban, ISIS, and so forth, that was, wanting to consolidate the Khalifa. And even in Africa with the AU, the African Union, wanting to do that. And so a lot of countries are seeing Europe and America, and that they have consolidated their power, and they're trying to follow the footsteps. Unfortunately, a lot of times what we end up hearing or what we end up saying, viewing is not that, but we're viewing that the threat they are to us, and not that they really want the same thing that we have. And we don't want them to obtain that, because then, they may be on equal footing, and then therefore they will become a imminent danger to us, so to speak. Albeit, we have to understand that politics is politics, and it's about controlling resources and space and land and people, changing the mindset of the people, getting them to, they said there's the missionary who changes the mindset, the mercenary, and the merchant, or the missionary, the merchant, and then the missionary, the merchants, and then the military. And Allah knows best. It could be either way. But it's very important that we understand as believers that the reality behind world politics and how we fit as cogs in a wheel, who we work every day and we take care of families and we do the things that we're supposed to do, and we hear things, but and I will quote Malcolm said, especially for the young people, you have to be critical and you have to think for yourself and analyze, is this particular thing good for me? Is it good for my family? In Istikhara prayer, we asked three things. Is it good for my deen? Is it good for my livelihood? And is it good for my hereafter? And so the same thing, is this good for my people? Is this good for my family? Is this good for me? A lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times, these things are not necessarily okay for certain groups of people. They're beneficial for other groups, but they're not beneficial for everybody. And I just wanted to put that out there, because you have to look at things and different perspectives in order from other angles in order to be able to see the whole picture. Because if you're looking just from the east, then you're looking from the east. If you're looking just from the west, you're looking just from the west. But we have to look from the east, we have to look from the west, we have to look from the north and the south, and we have to be able to see angles, regardless of where we stand. Once we understand the comprehensive view in this perspective, we still have to be intelligent enough to understand the total picture and not just be spoon-fed and understand a selected particular view of what we have been spoon-fed or taught or told. And such is the case because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran that that this is for those who are intelligent. This book is for those who think, and for those who tadakkarun, those who reflect. It is very important that as believers we stay in touch with the akhbar, the news. We stay in touch with what's going on in the world, and that we stay informed. Let us not be like ostriches with our heads in the sand, and we don't know about what is going on around us or why it is going on around us. We hear many conspiracy cases, we hear many things, but in the reality, we have to be intelligent enough to be critical enough to think, to dissect, istinbat, to deduct, to istisal, to extirpate situations in the world, just like we're taught to do so in the Deen. I've talked about in the past, the differences, ikhtilaf, but I never talked about at one time in the Islamic history, the Tariq or Islamia, that because of differences, there were bloodshed, a lot of bloodshed between Muslims simply because of differences of opinion. In America, for the most part, this is only theoretical to us, but for many people, after the golden years, there was bloodshed, and it wasn't very pretty. It was very, very, very sad. Let us not buy into, or let us not adopt the negativity. Let us adopt the beauty of the Deen, the flowers, the fragrance, the beauty, the love, the wishing for humanity. Let us adopt those things, and let us purge ourselves of those negative things that may be imported to this particular country, or imported through books, or through shuyuk, through alum. These things are not beneficial for our growth and our development. We are human beings, and no human being is alike. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala azza wa jalla created every individual with different fingerprints. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala azza wa jalla created every individual with different irises of the eyes. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us different, and He also created us in the mode that we think different. And the end result, even the path that we take, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has many things to do with that. He gives us instructions, and then how we interpret those instructions, how we perceive those instructions based upon how we were raised, based upon how we think, based upon our historical values, based upon what nationality and ethnicity and how we were treated, our social bringing, our family, our parents, our neighborhood. All of those things, take a precedent in how we make choices. Whether it's objectively or subjectively, whether it is humanistic or whether it is tribalistic, whether it is a situation where we grow and we take the good and we purge ourselves of the bad, like urine and feces, or we embody that as well in our ignorance. But the reality is that we have to understand what Islam has taught us, is that this is a deen for those who are intelligent. This is a deen for those who are righteous. That this is a deen for those who reflect and not just are blind followers. Not even a blind follower of the one who complains about blind following, because the ones who complain about blind following want you to follow them blindly. Fact. So the reality behind that is that we have to think. We have to question, and we have to be able to be the best of human beings that we can be, because as the Rasulullah said, charity begins in the home. Charity begins in the home. You deal with your home first, and then you spread out from the home. But you deal with the home first and foremost, and then you can take care of the neighbor, and the neighbor, and the neighbor that's near, and the neighbor that's far. But first you have to begin at home. This is a literal statement. We're talking about home, and you're talking about your neighbor to your right, neighbor to your left. Whether the neighbor is Muslim or whether the neighbor is not a Muslim. He's a human being or she's a human being. And then whether they are of your ethnicity or not, they're still a human being and you're a human being. And once you take care of your home, your ethnicity, on another level, on a social level, then you deal with the other ethnicities on a social level and you help them as well. So the mu'amala, it says that they were asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, why did he come? And he said, to teach good manners. We can make all of the salah. We can do all of the sunnah of fast. We can do all of the nawafil of fast, of salah, of qira'at, the Quran. We can read the Quran. We can do all these things. But if our behavior towards one another is not loving, if our behavior towards one another is not generous, the generosity, the kindness, the humbleness, if these things don't exist, then we have missed the mark of the whole purpose of the ibadah. We have missed the mark of the purpose of the salah. We have missed the mark of the purpose of the fast. We have missed the mark of the purpose of brotherhood and sisterhood towards one another. And we have to try our best, even in giving instructions and giving good advice, ad-dinu nasiha, and it says that the deen is good advice. We have to be able to do it meticulously with being able to do so, give this good advice diplomatically and with tact, where we don't offend the person intentionally, where we don't hurt a person. We hear people say, oh man, this is how I talk. Or, oh man, I keep it real. And they're brutally honest. We want to be honest, but we don't want to be brutal. We want to be honest, but we want to be, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told, as Musa alayhi salam told Harun, told Aaron, and Allah told them, speak a word that is compliant, that is soft speak. Don't be harsh. Don't be abrasive. Don't be brutal. This does not give strength to the argument. Don't try to injure the person, their heart, their feelings, even their egos. Don't try to injure them. But try, inshallah, in a manner that is with the hikmah, with the love, with the care that as human beings we are taught to do. Because our purpose is to watch over all of humanity. Our purpose is to watch over, and take care of the earth, of the tree. We're the real tree hugger. Of the ocean. We're the real oceanographers. of the air, which we're not doing too good with climate control right now because of our greed. But that would burn fast, or that which burns, fast burns up fast. And we have to be very careful as Muslims. Because we have to love the earth. We have to love the trees. We have to love the grass. We have to love the animals. We have to treat them good. It says that the prostitute, that she went to Jannah. She went to heaven. She'd been a prostitute her whole life, and guess what she did? She gave a cat some water that was thirsty, that was dying of thirst. And because of that one deed, she went to Jannah, she went to heaven, she went to paradise. Let us not judge people so harshly. Let us not talk to people so abrasively. Let us not buy into and adopt people's words to treat people bad. This is not in the deen. It is said that the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he was sent, he was not sent except as a mercy to the worlds. And the proof in the pudding is that he was lenient on everything except for La ilaha illallah. Everything he was lenient on, except that he was adamant and not sharing partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was lenient. Now that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be firm. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't be stern when it needs to be. With our children, sometimes with one another, just to let a person know. But it doesn't mean to be brutal, not to step over the bounds, not to be futura, not to go to the excess, but to deal with the situation as it needs to be dealt with at that particular time. Let us as believers understand world politics and understand where we are in that particular aspect. As one brother said, you can't be DMX and still be a Muslim. And no disrespect to DMX or his family, because in what he did, he was an entertainer and he was very successful in what he did. But that is not the harshness. It's not the conduct of the believer, the mu'min, or the mu'minat, or the Muslim, or the Muslimat. Our conduct is that we should be, inshallah, by the Father of Allah, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Adila mu'minin, be humble to the believer. Adila to mu'minin, be humble to the believer. And the believer male and the believer female, be humble. Aizatul kafirin, and harsh and hard and strong against those who fight you, who are not Muslims. So it's very important, man, that we understand world politics, and that we understand the importance of understanding that we do not allow ourselves to buy into ishtira, that we buy into dalat, that we buy into the misguidance under the guise of guidance. Like I said, many things and differences is theoretical in America. It should stay that way, theoretical. It's not that serious. What is serious is how a person treats you. What is serious is how a person responds to you. What is serious is how a person views you. If you believe that there's 1,000 angels on the head of a pin, and another person believes there's only 999, that's not really a big deal in this world. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will deal with those issues. To many, that becomes a big issue. And they push these issues for division. Let the Muslims never be divided behind small things. Let us not repeat the days of ignorance where Muslims killed each other simply because of differences. Well, you couldn't go to one part of a city or one part of a town, or you couldn't go to a city if your particular view was different. This is historically facts. Study it. Do not buy into that. Buy into that which is good. Accept that which is good and refuse that which is evil. Now, there are some who have gone way off the path. That's a whole different thing. And even with them, as the Prophet Musa was told when he was talking to Pharaoh, to fear the honor who was the worst of people, speak to them in a kind way and tell them in a kind way. That particular view may be incorrect, as my understanding is based upon the dalil, based upon the hujat of Quran and Sunnah or Fiqh. Whether it is the imams of Aqidah, Maturidi, Ash'ari, Ibn Taymiyyah, whether it's the imams of Aqidah, or whether something is done different based upon Imam Hanafi, Imam Shafi, Imam Malik, Imam Hanbal. Those are small things. Small things. 23 years things are done different. Same thing doesn't happen every day. Rasulullah wasn't a robot. What certain people understood in one part of the land, another group of people understood it different in another part of the land. But for those things that the majority, the kathir, understand to be correct, sahih, and to this day and age, mashallah, it's not a biggie. With that being said, understand world politics, the Islamic world politics, as well as the Kufr world politics, and world politics in general. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah.